important than the other hand. And I noticed that when I was growing up is writing speeds. So your more dominant hand will typically have a faster writing speed. Your less dominant hand, it will have a less faster speed. It will still be really good when it looks on looks, but to be honest with you, if you want to increase the speed, it takes a lot longer to increase speed when it comes to that type of stuff. So you're going to be spending tens of thousands of hours to increase the speed of your writing and your technique and all that stuff. So that would be practically equal at that point. But like I said, like if you're really focused on your schoolwork more, then technically, like yeah, you're right about that. But if you were given that for advice as adults, I recommend if you were an adult and you were trying to take this art stuff as a hobby, whoops, I'm doing what I did last time. You're trying to take art as a hobby, like you did when you were in high school or something, and you really liked art, and you realize that, I never got to do everything that I wanted to do in school because I didn't have the time and I was more focused on other things. Well, guess what? This would be a good way for you to practice what you missed out on, because in school I'm most likely, I guarantee it, because I could draw with both hands too, but it wasn't really that good. I got to that point where I was 13 years old and I was swapping hands constantly, but I realized when I got to my point where I was like, I gotta stick with one hand at this point because the homework kept getting more and more difficult, and to be honest with you, I started failing just because of that, because when I was growing up, I had an hour to 2 hours every time I got off of school to do all my homework on the bus. So that's why I started failing, because I wasn't able to stay awake in school. I was struggling with my sleep disorders. So that's why I ended up failing a lot. I had a lot of sleep disorders when I was growing up. So struggling getting to sleep, struggling staying asleep, struggling, with sleep patterns, like I'd wake up at random times of the day. Now, normally I'd be awake at a certain time every single day. This, I don't understand. This part of my body, I don't understand. I'm always awake at a certain time of every single day. You'll always see me awake at that time, and it's 12 o'clock noon. And the reason why is I think what it was is my body was like, I'm hungry every single time at that time of the day. So my body always just wakes up around either 10 to 12 every single day. I think that's what it comes down to. So it's not like I was purposely trying to fail school. I really loved doing my homework and I really loved, schoolwork, but like I was also addicted to gaming too. And I do blame that on a big portion of why I failed, but I was also learning on the side too, so technically, like, not everything was bad about gaming. They made it seem a lot worse than what it was. I mean, like, if you compare me to the average educated person, I'm actually far more superior in knowledge, and that's just not being a narcissist. That's actual, common sense. Most people can't even do this when it comes to type. Like, and it sounds narcissistic. I have to agree. It actually is. Like, putting yourself above everybody just because you can do something special. But it's not just that. Like, I have a lot of special hidden things that are about me that most people don't even know. Alright? And I like to keep it secret, but, like, there's a lot of things that I can do that most people can't do in society. That sounds narcissistic, of course. Like, if you lived like that and you're trying to put people down because they can't do it, it's like, no, I'm not trying to do that at all. I'm trying to wake people up. It's like, look, the way you guys have been living the last few years that I've been here in this county has been improper. And I noticed that right off the bat. A lot of people live their lives improper and they're judging people improperly. They try to make people seem way worse than they actually are and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I can do the same thing. I can make someone sound 10 times more criminal than they actually are. But sometimes, in some case scenarios, they actually are. So, I just accidentally uncover it and I keep uncovering more and more, and it's like, oh crap. Like, I didn't really mean to actually uncover this type of stuff. Why am I recording this though? Is well, these are like my baby steps. I still am really, really, really good at what I do, but these are considered baby steps to my next goals. I always take baby steps when I try to reach a goal. I try to, like if I'm playing a guitar, I got a guitar back there. If I'm playing a guitar, I want to like learn how to play my first song or something, or my first solo, or my first riff, that type of stuff. Learn notes, learn, how, the music works and stuff like that. I take baby steps to get to the point where I'm masterful at the thing that I'm doing. So I don't step in there thinking like some people think, and this is what puts them down, is like, oh, this is art, this is really easy. Like I used to do art all the time, it's really easy. Another thing that you could do to become really good at this is if you're not good at tracing and freehand tracing, the best way to freehand trace is go to I don't do it. This is all natural. Go to the library, get yourself some images that you want to print out, like I'm doing here. You print out some images, pay whatever you want to pay. You go there, you pay 20 cents, I think it's 20 cents where I live, per page. It's not really that bad. If you don't own a computer with a printer, this is how you would do it, and most people don't in this day and age. In the past, it was a little bit more common, but even then, it wasn't that common. So, that's like like I grew up with one for a little while, so that's the reason why I have a little bit of this type of stuff going on. But what you do is you put a blank page over another page, and you have something to trace. This helps you develop your lines and your dimensions. So when you start looking at something by eyeball, you will have sort of a feeling every time you're looking at from eyeball and moving from page to eyeball. You just got to move yourself from that point. You cannot hold yourself forever and locked in that, that void where you're like, I'm too scared to try it. I'm too scared. Well, you got to break that mold. That's what you're going to have to do eventually. You can't just tell someone I'm too scared to do something. Especially when it comes to this. I can understand if it was something different. But when it comes to like art, you're gonna have to break the mold eventually because it's like, like you're not gonna embarrass yourself, especially if you're all by yourself. How are you gonna embarrass yourself unless you're recording yourself and you're trying to impress everybody? But why are you trying to impress everybody if you haven't mastered it yet? I haven't even mastered it yet. I'm still like I'm intermediate to advanced. I'm not masterful with both hands. I mean, like that's really, really good though. Intermediate to advanced is well, well above the average person. All right, most people can't even get to this point because they want to give up right away or they're too scared. All right, and it's kind of messed up because a lot of people have these hidden talents and they never even knew it. It's not really that difficult. It's almost child's play when it comes down to it. It's child's play. It's literally drawing. As simple as it becomes, as simple as it can be. A lot of people throughout history have done this. It's real, real simple. Don't make it out to be real, real hard. If our ancestors could do it, you can too. You're looking at your ancestors and you're trying to make them sound like geniuses. They are. They were. A lot of them actually were. I mean, like, if you compare today's society, if you're above average intelligence, you're probably most likely, or your average intelligence, you're probably most likely smarter than anybody that lived in the past. I mean, the past 100 something years. And these arts did exist back then. They just weren't on the caliber that we took it to. We took it to the point where we're making 3D art and like we got dimensions a heck of a lot better. Everything looks better now in this day and age because a lot of people have practiced so dang long where they just got all that extra free time because that's the way society has developed. A lot of people in society now have the free time since our ancestors never really had the free time. If you did have the free time, you were already skillful from the start, or your family was a very wealthy family. You ended up striking it rich from the start. You would have either had to have been extremely wealthy from the start, that's the first thing, or the second thing would have been you just got lucky and you were really good. because that can happen, but it's very, 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 very. It's like 1 in a million odds. So, like I said, right here will be the end of this video. And I'm going to finish off with the ears. And I think it turned out quite wonderful. And why am I giving lectures like this inside my videos? Because I see people all the time inside of art videos, and they're giving explanations, and some of these people I've watched give explanations about switching their hand and why it's not recommended. Whoever taught them that in art was not teaching them art properly. I'll tell you right now, like most art teachers will tell you, yeah, it's not recommended if you're not very good at it. That's the first thing. Second thing is, yeah, you don't really need to swap hands. It's not a necessity. You could still make a great art piece, but when you start getting into the more advanced and masterful stuff, what will end up happening is you're going to be smearing a lot of stuff. And if you can't draw with both hands, it's going to look worse and worse and worse. That's what's going to end up happening. You're going to have something that's just completely smeared at the end of the day, and they're going to look at you like, this ain't that good. Or like, it's decent. It's not great. It could have been better. If you look at all the best artists that lived throughout history, the reason why they were so good was because they could draw with both hands. If you look at why most of our military people that were skillful leaders, tacticians, it was because they trained armed combat with both hands. They didn't train armed combat with one hand. And normally, if you were a really, really skilled general, they would make you swap hands. It was actually like some techniques that they would teach you during training. The reason why this was a technique, and I'm not just stealing that as information. I actually did read this on Google GPT, but no, that's actually the truth. Though I've watched military technician videos, and that would be a strategy. I mean, like if you can't teach yourself to fight with your non-dominant hand, well, okay. For example, if you end up dropping your shield or your sword, and you're in retreat, this would have been in the past. You're in retreat. What would end up happening is if you had to pick it up and you were in retreat and you're picking it up with your non-dominant hand, you can't even swing with it and you're all over the place, well, you're gonna die. So that would make it way like they break ranks a lot easier just because of that. And when they're breaking ranks, that makes it really easy for the enemy to pile through your brigade or whatever you had as your army personnel. So it makes it look like overall you didn't know how to be a skillful tactician. And a lot of tacticians were like that. They thought sheer masses was the best way to conquer the enemy. No, it wasn't always like that. Training was too. The best way to conquer the enemy was by battle tacticians, like people who thought the war out and trained their soldiers to the point of exhaustion every single day and taught them how to fight in a certain manner with both hands. And they also had war experience too. They've been in combat multiple times. They teach them how to fight small scale wars. See, wars back then wasn't really that big of a diplomatic thing where it comes to a diplomatic hit on your nation. It may have been a little bit, but it wasn't on the par that it is today when it comes to the United Nations. So that's the reason why small-scale wars would happen far, far more. And they don't happen as much. But here's what it looks like.